It's January 2026, and somehow I'm still mentally living in books I read in 2025. And it's not just those, oh, it was good reads. I'm talking about the story that rearranged how I think, that sparked endless conversations, and had me staring at the ceiling 2 a.m. in the morning. If you've ever finished a book and felt like it refused to finish with you, this is the video for you. Welcome back, serial readers. I'm your girl Ronnie, and we've officially crossed into 2026. But I have a few stories that are still living rent free in my mind. This isn't a best of list rankings video. These are books that really kind of lingered with me, refused to be forgotten, and just quietly followed me into the new year. Some books close, these don't. So these first two books are books that emotionally changed me. And the first one is Hold You Down by Tracy Brown. This story is set in New York City, Harlem, and the timeline is around late 1980s, early 1990s. We are introduced to two sisters, Mercy and Lennox. Mercy is the quiet, straight-laced sister. Meanwhile, Lennox is the wild child who does not follow rules. But both are raising sons, Dion and Judah, together. In the mix of the story, we do get about the streets and criminal activities such as selling drugs. But as you get further into it, you find that it is so much more than just that. What was outlined in the story was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because it gives you the backdrop of coming up in the projects. You're going to get all those things that come along with it, right? You're going to get bad influences, family members, or yourself having to deal with the legal system. And if not the legal system, possibly, are you going to survive? And so this story with the two sisters and how close they were in raising their children, their boys together, and seeing the road that everyone went down, it wound up being so heartbreaking. There was loss, there was betrayal in this story. This story lets you know that even when you do the right thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing for your family. The next book that had emotionally changed me is Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. Don't Cry for Me, it's about a father who is estranged with his gay son. He decides to write a letter as a way to make amends while on his deathbed. It's so heartfelt, it's so raw. You get a father who is willing to be vulnerable. When I tell you, I cried like a baby because it was so painful to have the father unfold all these things that occurred between him and his son and not be able to resolve their relationship. He's on his deathbed. These were books that really sat heavy with me after I finished. The emotions did not fade. They stayed with me, and they stayed with me because they mirrored real relationships, real choices, real pain, and pain that you can identify with. I think that's why they hit me so hard. They just felt personal. This next book is a book that just reminded me why I love reading, and it is Just Friends by Ashley Nicole. This book absolutely felt like joy to me. It was comforting to read. It really reminded me that reading can be fun without being shallow, but also without being heavy. In this book, we get a friendship group. You have 4 guys and 1 girl: Harlow, Demi, Ghost, Country, and Tuck. And they had this platonic relationship for years. The guys were overprotective besties. They did everything together, and it was almost like they were family until one day Harlow and one of the guys realized that they have romantic feelings for one another. This is what made it so fun, in addition to the guy girl friend group. You don't know which one of the friends, the guy friends, have feelings for Harlow, and so you have to try to kind of like figure it out. The names aren't revealed, and so it was fun reading it, trying to figure it out. They had conversations like any other friend group would have. They had fun with it. They made fun of each other. This is one of those books where if someone was to say to me they were in a reading slump, I would say, hey, read Just Friends. On top of that, it was a whole vibe, the vibe with the whole book as you're reading it, because the title, immediately when I read the title, the first thing that came to my mind was this old school song by Biz Markie called Just a Friend. They say he's just a friend. You say he's just a friend. Oh baby, you got what I need. And you say he's just a friend. And you say he's just a friend. And that was actually in the book. The song came in the book. And if it wasn't that song and the other song that popped into my mind, giving you that vibe mood, it was the song by Mario. He remixed that song. The book was a complete vibe. Okay, so these next two books are books that completely shocked me. One of the books I did talk about in a previous video, and that one is Filthy Kings by Masterpiece. So Filthy Kings is a dark, obsessive romance. It's very twisted and very filthy. I honestly think that Masterpiece wrote this book purposely just for the shock value, because as you're reading, you're like, wait, what? What's going on? Like when you're reading it, I'm not going to say when you're reading it, but as I was reading it, I felt sinful to the point where I was like, I had to have a conversation with God, like, God, please forgive me. So the other book, which went into a complete different direction, is The Bone King and the Starling by Elizabeth Stevens. As you can see by the cover, this story is a Viking historical romance. Actually, these last three books that I just mentioned are all book club reads from the Tipsy Book Club. And so when this book was chosen, I was not that excited about it. I was like, what is this? And so you get King Carlisle, who's this fierce but savage king. He is a protector and he's loyal. And eventually we get to see that he is a passionate lover. And then you have Starling, and Starling is what you call a thrall. And a thrall is a slave. Starling comes off very meek because of her position. King Carlisle comes to her land, and he comes to her land with the intentions to take over. And so it's rumored about how savage he is, and so there's a fear there. So he comes to her land. There's this special night that happens where he's presented. He sees Starling and he requests her for the night. I was like, oh wow, I didn't think I was going to enjoy the wait what moments. I was pleasantly surprised. So these next set of books, these are books that showed me love in a meaningful way. The first one is Dr. Bell, Niceville Shores Chronicles, The Beginning by M. Monique. And then the second one is Rhythms Blues by Kimberly Brown. These stories centered love that felt grown, they felt layered, they felt earned. The relationships weren't rushed. Dr. Bell was one of those men who wanted to not just talk the talk, but he wanted to talk the talk and walk the walk. So he was all about not just words, but action. He showed her what kind of man he was and what type of world he would give her by being his regular self, raising his 4 boys. He was raising 4 teenage boys as a single father. For Pretty, the FMC, or Coco, she can see that he was someone who was giving, who was loving, who was a nurturer. He showed up for them, poured into them. You have Coco or Pretty, who sees that this man he's all right with being a father. He's all right with taking care of children who aren't his biologically. He's a family man. He's a protector. Dr. Bell was a smooth talker too. He'll say stuff like, Pretty, let's fall in love. Like, really? For a man to come out and say, let's just fall in love, man, all right. Let's fall in love, right? But at the same time, don't play with him. He would say some crazy stuff like, sometimes you gotta pop out and show a mother effer. You gotta behead a mother effer, unalive a mother effer, just for them to know that you ain't playing. Like, that's what you got with Dr. Bell. I was so in love with Dr. Bell. I feel like Dr. Bell Dr. Bell is my book bae for 2025. And so in Rhythm and Blues, we have Channing and we have Rhythm. And I'm telling you, these MMCs been coming through in 2025. Channing loved Rhythm the right way. With Channing, Rhythm was loved right. He was exactly what she needed. When a man is able to love his mama, his grandma, and his 2-year-old Roddy, you bet your bottom dollar that man gonna love you right. Channing came correct. He was clear on his feelings. It wasn't no miscommunication. This is what it is. He knew exactly what he wanted. He knew when he got married what type of wife he wanted. The way he empowered Rhythm to stand up for herself, to help her realize who she was and that she was all that, it was just so beautiful. He poured into her. And then most importantly, what Rhythm needed. Rhythm needed a guy who wasn't going to try to hide her. He was like, once he claimed her, he was like, yeah, that's my girl. That's mine. We not hiding her. Bring her up here. I love these two characters. They made me feel the love that they have for their lady. They stayed with me because their love felt real. Okay, let's talk about those books that made me think a little bit deeper about the world. These books really challenged me. They pushed me to question things that I thought I already understood and shifted how I saw history and how I saw society. They both weren't passive reads, completely different reads, but not passive reads, but they demanded your attention. This first one, I talked about the impact of how it made me think before in a previous video. That book is The 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah-Jones. This book shows you that slavery is at the center of our national narrative. It's not just history. Don't let them fool you. It is weaved throughout our society today. It brings things to awareness. Like, for example, Black men were allowed to enlist in the Civil War, but they were sacrificed by placing them in the front for combat. This resulted into a high casualty rate. I think the book said about 40,000 Black soldiers died because of this. This book just made me realize I can't forget. It's still present. It's not just our history. It's in our society. It's everywhere. The next book that really had me thinking was Blood Slaves by Marcus Redmond. Now, this book is a historical, supernatural horror story. With Blood Slaves, it presents this idea of this mystifying revolt happening prior to the Civil War. So it's around the 1700s. And by becoming vampires, you have these two characters, Willie and Gertie. They're slaves and they have this hope for freedom. But then Willie meets Rafazi, who is this African vampire, and he's actually the last of his kind from the Ramunga tribe. And when Rafazi meets Willie, he sees something special in Willie, and he actually is empowered, because you find out that the reason why he's the last of his kind, because they died out. There was like this plague that was happening. Because of that, it wound up being that he was the only one. He is now in the 1700s and he meets Willie, and there is something about Willie that he sees that's so special about Willie. He becomes empowered. He goes to Willie and is like, hey, this is me, because who I am. He shows Willie his true form, and he says, if you become this, then you can become free. But the problem that comes out of this story, right? I love stories like this. They decide, we're going to take this to the other slaves so that we can offer them a way out of slavery through vampirism, if that's even a word. This is where the problem lies, because it's not so easy to make a decision to become a vampire. Especially think about slaves from that time, right? These were people who greatly believed in God. They were very spiritual. And so you're coming to them to present, you don't have to be a slave anymore. I have a way out. You turn into a vampire. But for anybody who morally, spiritually, as any foundation, is going to be like, you mean I gotta die and suck blood from other humans, become a demon, look crazy? I don't know about this. And it became a dilemma amongst the slaves. You had some who were willing to, yes, listen, I'm going to do whatever it takes to not be a slave. And you had others who were saying, that's demonic. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And so that led me to question, well, if I was a slave and that was presented to me, and knowing that I'm a Christian, right? What would I do? And I kept going back and forth with this. I was like, well, I would want my freedom. I would take it. But then I was like, no. If I take it, that means that, I'm pulling myself away from my God, and I don't want to do that. So these next books are books with a world I just did not want to leave. These worlds felt alive. I can actually picture myself inside of them, moving through their spaces, being connected with the people, with the land. The first one is The Whistler by A.A. Lewis. And so this book is also a historical romance, but it's a paranormal historical romance thriller. It is set in the rich and mystical backdrop of the 1800s in New Orleans. So what a perfect, right? When I talk about worlds, that is the best setting. And in this story, we have the Whistler. He is this soul devouring entity that was cursed for loving the wrong person. The Whistler lures you with this eerily sound. It's like this whistle. He whistles your name. And if you hear your name, it's too late for you. This book was absolutely sensual. It was alluring. It was steeped in deep magic. You can see like the French quarters, the foggy swamps, the street lit corners, the paved bricks. You can see it all. You can feel it all. I was so fully immersed in this story. The next book, Wonder by Christina C. Jones. It's a post-apocalyptic reimagined story of Alice in Wonderland. So with Wonder, it felt familiar, but it was different at the same time. It was all about Allie and her survival, but more importantly, how she wanted to be able to keep her family safe. I would absolutely read more of these types of universes without any hesitation. Okay, this next one that I want to talk about is about a book with a voice that I don't hear often. And that is Elias, or aka Elias Amari, from Shadows and Whispers by Casey Mills. What made this book stand out for me was the perspective. Elias's mental disability was not an afterthought. You can clearly see that it was woven in the narration, the pacing, and the way that the story unfolded. This book stood out because the disability was presented in a voice itself, and that's something that you don't often read. Okay, these next books are books with characters that truly grew. First book is Intrigued by Danger by India Carter. So as you all know, this is the third book in the Danger series, and Declan had been the least of interest Danger brother for most readers, I would say, probably in books 1 and 2. Declan came off as soft, he was passive, and he was much a yes man. Declan was in a stagnant relationship, and he really did not have much depth as a character. But then in book 3, we see something happens to Declan. He shows his vulnerability. He shows his strength. And he gets into a relationship where he becomes strong. He becomes confident. He is empowered. And because of that, there was such this dramatic growth and emotional clarity from Declan. The next character, visually when I was thinking about this, I was like, yeah, he had growth. But then there was a follow-up book and I'm starting to question, did he really have growth? But I'm going to go with this book and say that in this book, we do see some growth. And that is Disrespectfully Relic by Antoinette Sherrill. Another book that I talked about in another video. Relic comes from The Art of Hood Love. That's where we get to first experience Relic, right? And in Relic, in The Art of Hood Love, I could not stand Relic. I was hoping that Shabu would put him down because he was just so grimy. He was cold-hearted. He was ruthless. And I was just not feeling him. Not to mention, he was careless. And your life, messing around with Relic, your life could be at risk at any given moment. But then we get Disrespectfully Relic. We started seeing the layers being peeled back. We start to understand why Relic was the way he is. Relic, it opens up just a little bit more. He is not as cold, but you get to see glimpses of warmth, especially when Relic is dealing with his family. He's showing up for the people that he cares for, and you can see in Disrespectfully Relic that Relic does have a conscience. A book that I flew through. Oh, actually, it's a series. It's a 2-book series. It's a duet. It's a duology, whatever you want to call it. I read them in 2 days. Book 1 in 1 day, book 2 in 2 days. I talked about this series before, and that is Devout by Takira Allen. I flew through these books, and yes, sleep was sacrificed. The pacing, the tension, the emotional pull, all of that made it impossible for me to put it down. This next one is a little bit different because this is a book that challenged me because my opinion of it is an unpopular opinion. And that is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This book really, really, really challenged my expectation. It pushed me outside of my usual preferences. It made me really question what I thought I wanted from a story. I hate to do this. The Black cultural references felt forced to me. It was like when you have someone who you get around someone and they like to name drop all the famous people, right? And so that you can feel like you think that they are cool or they're someone important. That's how I kind of felt with the Black references. Secondly, I kept forgetting who I was reading about. When I was reading the book, and let me tell you, so I started with the physical copy, and I was reading the book, and I was like, who is this book about? And I would look at the front, I was like, oh, they're Black characters. That's right. So I would go back and read because they didn't feel like Black people to me, if that makes sense. And I know I mentioned the Black cultural references. That was one aspect. But then when you think about the characters and what they did and their lifestyle, I was like, wait, what? Who is? And it was only because the cover reminded me, oh yeah, they're a Black couple. These are Black people. My point is, I didn't feel the characters matched who they were, if that makes sense, right? And then lastly, I didn't feel the chemistry between the FMC and the MMC. The conflict of their past, it just didn't add up for me. And so this book really challenged me. Sorry, guys. All right, these next books are books that I already know without a doubt before I finished it that I was going to return to those books. First one is ding 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 ding, The Whistler. I was reading the ebook version and I was like, I got so amped up that I was like, oh no, I need the physical copy. I bought the physical copy because I already knew that I was going to reread this book. Some books are just meant to be revisited. This is one of them. For the characters, for the writing, for the way it made me feel. I mean, the color of the pages has like this almost like hue blue, light blue, grayish color. I don't know if it will show up on the camera. There are pictures in here. You have Celeste Bordeaux. You have Josiah. You have the Whistler. Oh my God. I love this book. Let me show you the Bordeaux sisters. They're conjurers. Oh my goodness. I just love this story. Look at the Bordeaux sisters. This is Naomi Dupree. Let me put it on this side. Naomi Dupree. And the thing is with the Whistler, his curse. So every 10 years, he's able to break the curse. But it takes him centuries. So even though it's a historical paranormal, it does wind up coming to date, right? And so some of the characters that are up to date are like, you have someone like I don't know how to pronounce her name, Maricel or something like that. Maricel. Who else you had now? Oh, we have Maya. We have Maya, and we have Mello, right? Like I absolutely, I'm trying to convince the book club, Tipsy Book Club, to put this on the list so that we can read it, because I think they will fall in love like how I fell in love with this story, because a lot of those girls in the group, they love a world building, and so this is one of those, and I hope they're watching. Hint, hint, ladies, hint, hint. And then the other thing, right? So A.A. Lewis gives questions, and one of the questions, oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to reread this book again. Where are her questions? So one of the questions that she has, right, is, and it's not a spoiler, the sound of the whistle. If you heard it, would you be one of the people who followed, or one of the ones who ran? What would that choice say about you? And so I say that I would be the one who follows. Because the thing is, right, with the Whistler, if you hear his whistle, it's whistling to your desires. So I'm not going to play like I'm going to run. I am going to follow and get what I came for. Okay? No shame in my game. No shame in my game. Now, whatever happened after, it is what it is. But in that moment, I'm not ready. It says about what it says about me, AA. It says that I respond to my desires. I let my desires lead me. This next book is about the book that I feel deserves more love, and that is Gold by Serafini. This book didn't get the attention that it deserves. I love the storyline. I love the characters, the fashion, the music. A lot of people talked about the Magnolia Uverse as reminding them of Gossip Girls, but I feel like this book gives more of a Gossip Girls feel to it, minus all black cast and a little bit of street mixed inside of it as well. I had fun. This is one of those books that kept me up at 2 a.m. in the morning. Sleep was not on my mind. I just was so deep into this book, I did not want to put it down. I do have to say this. You guys see this book? It's thick, right? It is 730 pages worth of goodness, but it ends on a cliffhanger. However, Serafini did post on her Instagram that book 2 is coming out this year in the first quarter. Now, I want to hear from you. Which book from last year followed you into this new year? Drop it in the comments. I'm always looking to add to my never-ending TBR. And if you enjoyed this type of reflective book talk, don't forget to like, subscribe, and come on back, because we're always talking about books over here for the love of books. Bye, guys.